guys, how's it going? So in today's chat, I'd like to go a little bit deeper into some of the topics that I've uploaded in the past. And I'd like to preface this video first by saying this conversation is probably not for everyone. Although I do believe that this is something that a lot of INFPs will be interested in, and I'll try to add as much nuance and depth towards this as I possibly can. This conversation is highly inspired by Michael A. Singer. I've been studying and practicing his work from the untethered soul to living from a place of surrender for a long time. And it took me a long time to understand it. After practicing it for many years and sharing with my clients and seeing how it's not only changed my life, but their life, and the practice is ongoing, and it's very much in line with the work that I do around coaching and grounding and creating impossible projects and so on and so forth. I'd like to sort of share kind of like an overview with you guys. The way I see it is when INFPs, or any type really, when they have that, we always have access to our full cognitive stack, right? But let's say when we're in harmony with our full cognitive stack as an INFP, then our heart is open. We allow the world to come in and feed us. So regardless of whether it's our psyche perceives it as a good experience or a bad experience, and this is something I'll get into a little bit later, but we allow it to feed us, pass through us, and however our heart wants to express itself, think about the heart as like a full orchestra with low notes, dun dun da da, and high notes, right? Like ding ding ding, like happy sort of notes. We allow the heart to express itself fully and allow that experience to enrich us, for us to learn. And we also allow ourselves to get really curious about the world, to get curious about new experiences, to get curious about possibility, to go out there and try different things that, again, we allow the world, the moment in front of us to pass through us, and we get to experience that. And when it comes to our other cognitive functions, I guess to put it simply, is just the ability to use our intellect, intellectual mind, our analytical mind, to create something, inspire, to be inspired, to share something of value out into the world, to contribute into the world, or just to create something for fun, to be creative, to tap into spontaneity, to share what we've learned that could benefit others and express something out into the world. And I see this harmony with high energy, like we're just living, as the best version of ourselves, basically. And one of the reasons why I don't talk about the cognitive stack, cognitive functions that much is because, one, it's already been done, and there are people that have just created amazing videos explaining it very much in depth. But what I've come to realize is that even though we understand the nature of the cognitive functions, when there's still a lot of stuff that's inside us, like trapped energy, patterns, imprints, or what Michael A. Singer likes to say as some scars, is then we'll be using our intellectual and analytical mind to actually analyze our own problems versus actually using our intellectual analytical mind to create something of benefit for other people. It'll be all about us instead of something that we can contribute into the world. And so I wanted to talk about that, through the teachings of Michael A. Singer's work. So I guess I'll start with the outside world. I'll try to keep it a summary, otherwise the video would be way too long. We would just have such an amazing experience if we were living moment to moment, as in the outside world came in and it enriched us, and we allowed our heart to feel or express whatever the outside world presented to us. And Michael A. Singer talks about how the moment in front of you has nothing to do with you. It took 13.2 billion years to get to this point. It's people, places, partnerships, staff, work, anything. The moment in front of you, it took 13.2 years of evolution to get to that point. And if you're in a relationship, he says something like, if your great-great-grandfather didn't meet your great-great-grandmother, we're not here, right? And when you understand that, that everything in front of you is a matter of evolution and it has nothing to do with you, our bodies and all of this was created by the stars. There is a great appreciation and gratitude for the moment in front of us, the experience, right? But what happens is that we make it personal. And so The first layer of mind. So the first layer of mind is empty mind, right? And so empty mind is pure potential. It's like a computer with amazing hardware that hasn't had all the software put into it. Translate into us is like empty mind without all that conditioning, all the imprints, all our likes and dislikes, all our opinions, all our preferences, the things that we've clung on to or the things that we've resisted. So that's the first layer of mind. And if we were just to experience life as that, where the world comes in, passes for us and feeds us, then our moment to moment experience in our life would be just full of beauty and experience. But what happens is that there's a second layer of mind where we hold on to experiences, or we cling on to them, right? And we create impressions in our mind of what we like. And so we create expectations as well. And we've been doing this for, decades, depending on how old we are. It's like we superimpose our preferences and expectations and what we like or dislike or we don't want to experience onto reality. So reality is no longer, like for us, it's no longer pure. Like reality is now distorted. And so this clinging or resisting is what creates the third layer of mind, which is our psyche, our preferences and so on and so forth. And so we operate in this world through the distortion of our psyche. And this was an insight that really hit me as I was learning it, was that regardless of whether we cling, and it makes sense why we cling to things. They feel good, so they make sense. Like if you have an amazing experience, you want to have that experience again, right? But regardless of whether you cling or you resist, we still lose. Okay, so even if we cling, we will now do everything within our willpower to recreate that experience or look for that experience so that we feel okay inside. And so if our expectations aren't met, and we do this with everything, for situations that we go into with partners or people that we meet. Let's say we meet a person and they're amazing the first time we meet them, but then the second time they're not the same, the energy's low, and so we don't have the same experience. Or if we go to a bar or a restaurant and the first time it's amazing service and we had such a great time, and then we start to rave to all our friends about it, the reviews, but then we got our friends together and we went a second time and it wasn't as good. So now we don't enjoy the experience, right? We don't enjoy the moment that's in front of us that has nothing to do with us as just a pure experience. And sure, the service is different, but we don't enjoy as a result of our previous experience that we clung on to and we created an imprint about. So yeah, that was a very enlightening experience for me, where I came to the realization after really understanding it that regardless of whether we cling or resist, we still lose. When we have these experiences, the world comes in and it touches our heart, right? Especially as an INFP, we feel a lot because it's our dominant function. So like I said before, the heart is like a orchestra, and it has this capability, this amazing ability to play all these notes, low energies or low vibrations all the way up to high. And as the world comes in, it has different vibrations. Having a butterfly land on you, the vibration that comes out of that and how your heart expresses through that experience is very different to, say, seeing a rattlesnake. Seeing someone that's mean and bitter and judgmental is a very different experience to experiencing someone that's warm and kind and friendly. Our heart will express different notes when it comes across these experiences. We either cling onto the good experiences and we create those imprints and patterns and preferences that go into our psyche, or we resist. We store these patterns within us, and this trapped energy, which wasn't allowed to fully express itself until completion. And this is one of the reasons why in my last video I was when you're feeling a lot of that resistance, sit with it, because that's an old pattern coming up. Every time you either go into a distraction or an avoidance, or you force yourself to do something and you kind of skip that part or you bypass, you're essentially teaching yourself that you're not okay, that you can't handle whatever you're experiencing. When we have an experience, let's say that's a lower vibration, we have a tendency to push it away, to push it down. And where does it go when we resist? It stays trapped in our energy systems. And when it stays trapped there, that's why we get all these automatic thoughts, that happen all the time. Like 95% of our thought processes, that's a result of the energy that we've pushed down in the past. And this is why when you come across resistance, like you're having this experience, it's a familiar experience. You know that pattern that's coming up, that it's resistance, or like that pattern of wanting to procrastinate, or that pattern of wanting to distract yourself. And how would you know unless it was something that we had experienced before and we had pushed down? And so that's kind of the predicament, right? We have all these stored patterns and imprints, reactive patterns that are inside us that we've stored over years and years of experience. And we've also built neural pathways of habitual behaviors on top of them. And they keep resurfacing. As we go out into the world and we experience the world, the moment in front of us that has nothing to do with us, right? Again, we go back to that whole 13.2 years of evolution to get to this place. We experience the world again through our distortion, through those imprints, through those stored patterns. So then the moment in front of us is no longer pure. We also don't allow our heart to fully express itself. There's a beautiful thing that Michael Acini talks about, how the heart is like the little sister and the mind is like the older brother. And there's this beautiful quote that he mentions, which is, mind is the place that the soul goes to hide from the heart. Mind is a place that the soul goes to hide from the heart. So the heart is wanting to express itself, but we resist. We don't want to go there. We don't want to have that experience. So what happens to that energy? Well, it goes into the mind. The mind, being the big brother, wants to protect the little sister. So that's when we use, you could say, other cognitive functions to analyze things and be like, play down the experience, or it's okay, or justify, or soften the blow, and so on and so forth. So it's not allowing us to have that full experience, to experience that full orchestra. That's how those patterns get stored. Anytime we go out into the world and we come across an experience that reminds us of that previous experience, we're going to have that same pattern come up again, and we're going to go into the mind. The big brother's going to come in to protect the little sister. And so then these patterns from our psyche, from the things that we've clung or resisted for our lifetimes, they now run our lives. And so whatever we look for in the outside world is things that either match these patterns that we've stored, or we avoid the things that, match the things that we resisted. Right? And that's the only way that we feel okay, unless we go a little bit deeper. Like, we only feel okay when the person in front of us, or the experience, or the circumstance somehow matches our likes, or the pattern that, we've clung on to. And then what happens is our heart opens up a little bit. And so a little bit of energy is allowed to come through and sort of feed us, right? And so we feel good and we feel secure. And we feel inspired up until the point where that changes, and then it's no longer the experience that we want, right? And then our heart closes. So then it becomes a very conditional way of living. It becomes a very, very conditional way of living until we learn, and this has been a big part of my journey, about how to let go of this stuff. Like just letting go of this stuff. Letting go of, because I didn't want this stuff to keep coming up anymore. I didn't want these reoccurring patterns, and I didn't want, as these patterns came up, to shut down my heart, to resist, to push away, not allow it to express itself, then be in my mind trying to analyzing how I can get what I want in order to feel okay. I didn't want to live like that anymore. I didn't want to live my life not being able to experience the purity of experience that has nothing to do with me. I wanted to live in the present moment, to have that moment-to-moment experience, to allow life and whatever was happening in life to touch me and feed me in the way that just pass through me, basically, and let my heart express whatever vibration I want to express. And it's still a journey, right? And life, every single situation in life is an opportunity for you to let go or to grow. If you're into this sort of stuff, like every single experience is an opportunity where you can either let go of something you've clung on to, or something that you've resisted for a very long time. Let's say a bad experience, it hits those patterns that you've stored, and that energy comes up, and instead of suppressing it, we allow our heart to fully express it, and we release. And that's that is quite a painful process. It's not comfortable, because when we pushed it away, or when that experience first came into us, it was stored with pain, right? And so when it wants to release, which it does, like life is always wanting to release these patterns, right? Because it's not healthy having all these patterns in here. It'll also come out with pain, and that's why it has to do with, like, I think it was Joseph Campbell's work, where it's like the only way out is through. Example is like when you're dealing with heartbreak, if you're pushing that heartbreak away, instead you spend a lot of time in your mind analyzing the situation, replaying things over and over again, you'll create so many patterns that will then be detrimental for the next relationship or the relationship after that, and then you'll be forever looking to match those patterns. Like, you'll be happy if your partner matches those patterns, and then you won't be happy if they don't, basically. And yeah, it's just a very conditional way of living. But then we have the choice, like, if we don't want to live in such a conditional way where the mind is constantly fluctuating, like it's high energy when it gets what it wants, and it's low energy when it doesn't get what it wants. And like, same as, let's say, if you're creating something or you're wanting to take action, but the same stuff comes up, like resistance, fear, so on and so forth. If you don't want to experience any of that stuff anymore, then this is a great journey, like allowing this stuff to come up and express itself, and you're not resisting it, you're not pushing it away, you're not holding on, you're actually letting it, pass through and release. And so there was a technique that Michael A. Singer talks about, which is called relax and release, where the energy comes up and it's very painful, but you can sense when the energy, like within your body, starts to shift. Let's say when something from the outside world brings up this pattern, right? This energy, you can sense that already. And so in that moment, when you sense that shift in energy, you learn to relax, as the awareness. And this is going a little bit deeper into spirituality, as like awareness, as the subject, right? The seat of self, as he talks about it. You're seeing what's happening inside internally. This energy is coming up, and you relax. You experience that shift inside of you, and then you relax, right? You lean, you distance yourself from what's happening. Yeah, you're not pushing it down. That's our natural tendency, is to push it down, but instead you allow that experience to come up, and you distance yourself, and you give it space so that it can release. What usually happens is that energy comes up, that pattern comes up, and then we resist, and we go straight into the mind, right? The moment we resist and go straight into the mind, adding more fuel to the pattern, or we're solidifying the pattern, again, right? And we may try to do something so that we feel better, or we might analyze or use our intellect, our cognitive stack to make ourselves feel better, but it's only temporary and momentarily. And then sure enough, again, when we come across a familiar circumstance, that same thing will come up again, and every single time. And life will constantly do this to you. And this is what I constantly remind myself, and I tell all of my clients, is that life will, when you get into this stuff and you bring more awareness to your moment-to-moment experience, you'll be surprised at how often you get triggered. Like, you walk around every single day just like, wow, there's so many things that trigger me. There's so many cues in the environment, cues in what people say, things at work that bring up a lot of stuff. Like, I have a lot of stuff in me, which is getting in the way of me just enjoying the experience of life, letting it feed me, letting me learn and grow from it, and letting my heart express what it wants to express as a natural, right? Like, the heart expressing itself with the beautiful orchestra and the notes is a natural byproduct of, the world coming in. And again, it's just an ongoing journey. But anyway, this was just kind of like an overview. If you're interested in stuff, I would recommend looking into Michael A. Singer stuff. Again, it's not for everybody. It is very, very deep, but it is working at the root. Like, imagine like a big tree, right? All these techniques that present themselves, even like how to use your cognitive functions, efficiently and effectively, and anything like Tony Robbins, NLP, all this technique-based stuff, how to take more action. Michael's work is about, dealing with the root. So it's going to the root and dealing with the stuff that that's trapped in there, that continues to resurface. And the way I see it is that they do synergize very, very well. As you create in the world will present opportunities for you to grow, and it will bring up a lot of this stuff that you can then ground, that you can then see through, that you can then let go, that you can then release. And so the journey just isn't just, creating, like using techniques, analyzing and pushing yourself and fixing all these things, but it's actually really working at the root of like why you don't feel okay inside, why this resistance continues to come up, why you continue to procrastinate, why you continue to distract yourself, why you get reactive over certain things, why you make everything so personal. And I'm really speaking from experience here. I'm like kind of speaking to myself, or the younger version of myself. And I guess this is what this whole INFP video channel is for. It's like I'm speaking to the younger version of myself. Yeah, like throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. So this is like the path that I've really gone into, and I've shared a lot of this with my clients and my friends as well. And it's really changed my life. Like there's a lot of things that I used to get really reactive about that just, they don't come up anymore, and it's very, very liberating. And it's the same with a lot of action taking, including making these videos that I really couldn't do before, because there was a lot of stuff that would come up around fear and insecurity and bullying and what people will think and say and all this validation stuff, fear of failure, fear of cringiness. I guess the fact that I can even come on and hit record and make these kind of videos is a testament to like how like this work, if you do the work on yourself, it actually works. And it's a practice. It's like playing scales, like Mike Lacing always says. It's a practice of awareness. Using some techniques to become more aware is very helpful. So like if you do meditation or stillness for like 15 minutes a day, and you remind yourself that you want to let go of the stuff that's inside of you. Oh, and obviously, as you read the books, you learn the actual techniques of relaxing, like distancing yourself from what's coming up in the mind, being the awareness, being the seed of self, noticing what's happening inside of you, not being engaged, not getting into it. And you learn those, it's all a practice. You learn those along the way. You learn to let go of more and more things as you go. So this was like a really long drawn out video. If you guys stayed into the end, means that you're pretty interested in this stuff. I usually play it safe, I would say. Like I don't really go into this much detail, but I just felt like sharing what I've learned and what's helped me, and just coming out here and throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. So I think that's all I've got. I could talk about this for hours, but for the sake of not too long video, then I'll stop here. So I'll catch you guys on the next one.